Emily Taylor's eyes burned as she stared at the envelope in her hands. Thick, heavy, with the golden emblem of Westbrook Construction stamped in the upper corner. Inside it, more money than she had ever seen gathered in one place. $50,000 in $100 bills, arranged in perfect stacks. Along with the money, confidential documents she knew shouldn't be in her possession. The afternoon wind blew strongly at the observation deck of the Golden Gate Bridge, scattering her curly hair across her face. Below her, San Francisco Bay glittered under the California sun, indifferent to the turmoil ravaging her mind. Tourists took photos, couples held hands admiring the view, a vendor offered bottled water. Life following its normal course for everyone except her. What would you do if you discovered information that could bring down one of the largest construction companies in the country? Would you keep the money and stay silent, or risk everything for the truth? Emily pressed the envelope against her chest, feeling the weight of the decision. She had come to the bridge to clear her head after an exhausting week between her architecture classes at UC Berkeley and her internship at Westbrook Construction. She never imagined she would find that envelope forgotten under the conference table after everyone had left, never imagined curiosity would lead her to open it, and especially never imagined she would discover evidence that the new housing complex project in Oakland was being built with materials of inferior quality than what was approved, putting the lives of hundreds of families at risk. $50,000. She thought. It was enough money to pay for her entire education, help her mum with her medical treatment, maybe even make a down payment on a small apartment. But that money came with a price that went far beyond its monetary value. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. It was Jason, her best friend since childhood, probably wondering if she was going to the concert in North Beach that night. Jason was a true San Franciscan, born and raised in Pacific Heights, with that characteristic carefree attitude of someone who never had to worry about money. Even so, he was the shoulder Emily leaned on most during difficult times. Emily ignored the call. This was a decision she needed to make alone. In the distance, the Transamerica Pyramid seemed to observe her, as if offering both protection and a silent reminder about doing the right thing. Emily had grown up in the Oakland suburbs, raised by a single mother who worked as a nurse in double shifts to ensure her daughter had access to quality education. "Character is non-negotiable, honey," was the mantra that Ms. Carroll repeated constantly. The 23-year-old was one of the few students from a humble background in the prestigious architecture program. Every grade, every assignment, every opportunity was earned with twice the effort. The internship at Westbrook Construction, secured after 3 attempts, and much study was the first step toward the future she dreamed of building, a future that now seemed threatened by the envelope in her hands. "Miss, would you like some water?" The vendor's voice brought her back to reality. An elderly man with sun-wrinkled skin, with that wide smile typical of friendly locals. "No, thank you, Mr. Tony," she replied, recognizing the vendor who was there every day. He nodded and continued on his way, offering the refreshing drink to other tourists. Emily took a deep breath and walked toward the exit that would take her back to the city. The decision had already been made before she even realized it. The girl from Oakland, daughter of Ms. Carroll, couldn't live with herself knowing she stayed silent. As she descended, she checked the time on her cell phone, 5:45 p.m. If she hurried, she could still catch Michael Westbrook, the CEO of the construction company, before he left the office in downtown San Francisco. The man who, coincidentally, owned the envelope and was the father of Ryan Westbrook, the junior architect for whom Emily was developing feelings that were increasingly difficult to ignore. Fate couldn't be more ironic. 3 months earlier, Emily would never have imagined being on the 18th floor of one of the most imposing office buildings on Market Street, much less interning at Westbrook Construction. Everything changed that March afternoon when Professor Samantha announced that the 5 best projects in the class would be presented at an event with the main construction companies in San Francisco. Emily's project, a sustainable housing complex inspired by the communities of East Oakland, stood out for its innovation and social sensitivity. While her classmates designed glass towers for the Marina District, she was thinking about how to transform the reality of those who needed it most. My mom always says that architecture isn't just for those who can afford it, Emily explained during her presentation, her eyes shining with passion. I believe we can create dignified, sustainable, and beautiful spaces for everyone. In the audience, a man in an impeccable suit with graying hair was watching attentively. Michael Westbrook rarely attended university events, but something in the title of Emily's project, Architecture of Belonging, Redesigning Common Space, had sparked his curiosity. At the end of the presentation, while the students were chatting excitedly with the guests, Emily was busy packing up her materials. She didn't expect anyone to be interested in a project that challenged the traditional construction model. "Miss Taylor?" The deep voice surprised her. "Michael Westbrook, I'd like to discuss your project." Emily blinked a few times, not believing it. Westbrook Construction was an institution in San Francisco, responsible for some of the most luxurious developments in the city, but also for internationally awarded social housing projects. "Of course, Mr. Westbrook." She tried to hide her nervousness. "Your project reminded me of why I started in this business," he said, looking at the panels Emily had prepared. "My father was a construction worker in Hunters Point. He built homes for others, but never had one of his own. I promised him I would change that." Emily listened attentively, surprised by the vulnerability of this man who, according to business magazines, was one of the most relentless businessmen in the industry. "We're starting a project in East Oakland, precisely where your proposal would apply," he continued. "I'd like to offer an internship for you to develop these ideas with us." Emily's heart raced. It was the opportunity many in her class dreamed of, but which always seemed reserved for those with the right connections or the right last name. It would be an honor, Mr. Westbrook." He smiled, extending a business card. "Monday, 9 a.m. Ask for me at reception." That night, Emily could hardly sleep. She called her mum, who cried with pride over the phone. She called Jason, who insisted on celebrating with a barbecue on Sunday. What she didn't know was that this opportunity would open doors not only for her career, but to a world of complexities she had never imagined. On Monday, dressed in the best blazer she managed to borrow from a cousin, Emily entered the imposing Westbrook construction building. The marble and glass lobby made her stomach turn with nervousness. "Emily Taylor for Mr. Michael Westbrook," she said to the receptionist, who examined her from head to toe with a look Emily knew well, the one that questioned whether she was in the right place. After a brief call, the receptionist indicated the elevator. 18th floor. "Mr. Westbrook's assistant will receive you." The office was exactly as Emily had imagined, spacious, elegant, with panoramic views of the city. On the walls, models and images of the construction company's most emblematic projects. Emily, a woman of about 40 with impeccable posture, approached. "I'm Regina, Mr. Westbrook's assistant. He's in a meeting, but asked me to introduce you to the architecture department first. Come with me." Regina led Emily down a hallway to a large room where several people were working on computers with plans and 3D models. "Everyone, this is Emily Taylor, the new intern who will work on the Oakland Green project," Regina announced, attracting curious looks. "Ryan, can you introduce her to the team? Your father asked that she be integrated into your group." It was at that moment that Emily saw him for the first time. Ryan Westbrook rose from his desk with a smile that illuminated the entire environment. Tall, with green eyes like his father's, but with softer features and slightly disheveled dark hair, a combination that stood out from the corporate environment. "Welcome, Emily." He extended his hand. "I've heard a lot of good things about your project. We're excited to have you with us." Emily felt herself blush. His hand remained, holding hers for a second longer than necessary. "Thank you for the opportunity," she replied, trying to maintain professionalism. "I'm eager to contribute." In the days that followed, Emily immersed herself in work. The Oakland Green Project was ambitious, transforming a degraded area of East Oakland into a sustainable housing space, with rainwater harvesting, solar energy, and integrated green areas. It was very similar to what she had proposed in college, which made her wonder if Michael Westbrook had been inspired by her ideas. Working side by side with Ryan, Emily discovered he was much more than the owner's son. Graduated from MIT with a master's in sustainable architecture from Germany, he shared many of Emily's social concerns, although he came from a completely different reality. "I think this community space could be expanded," Emily suggested during an afternoon of work, pointing to the digital blueprint. "The families in East Oakland usually gather for parties, religious meetings." Ryan approached, leaning over the desk to get a better look. Emily smelled his cologne, a subtle fragrance that momentarily left her speechless. "Good observation." He made some notes. "Do you know the area well?" "My aunt lives there," replied Emily. "I grew up visiting East Oakland, playing in the alleys, getting to know the people. It's a place full of life and potential, different from what they show in the news." Ryan observed her with new interest. "Most of the architects we hire have never set foot in a place like East Oakland. They draw beautifully, but don't understand the soul of the place." "And you," Emily dared to ask, "have you been there?" "A few times. My father insists we know all the sites personally, but I admit it's different to visit and to really know." He smiled, that smile that was beginning to make Emily distracted. "Maybe you could show us your perspective someday." Before Emily could answer, Michael Westbrook entered the room, accompanied by a middle-aged man with a severe expression. "Ryan, Emily, this is Robert Andrews, Secretary of Housing. We're going to present him with the progress of the project." The presentation was a success, with Emily surprising everyone with her detailed knowledge of the community. The secretary, initially skeptical, ended up convinced of the benefits of the proposal. "Impressive, Michael. Your team is to be congratulated," commented Robert at the end. "The credit is mainly to our new intern," replied Michael to Emily's surprise. "Sometimes we need fresh eyes to see the obvious." That afternoon, leaving work, Emily could hardly believe how her life had changed in such a short time. She was contributing to a project that could transform the lives of hundreds of families, working at one of the largest construction companies in the country, and, to her surprise, beginning to develop feelings for the owner's son. What she didn't know was that, in a few weeks, she would find that envelope that would change everything. "Emily, I need your help with these reports." The voice of Barbara, the architecture department coordinator, interrupted her thoughts. It was an ordinary Wednesday, a month after Emily had started her internship. "Of course, Barbara. What do you need?" "We need to organize these documents for tomorrow's meeting with the Secretary of Housing. It's the materials report for the Oakland Green Project." Emily received the folder and began to work. Among technical specifications and cost spreadsheets, her eyes captured something strange. There were two completely different materials lists for the same project. One, clearly intended for external presentation, listed top-of-the-line materials with international safety certifications. The other, marked as internal, presented cheaper substitutes, many without the necessary certifications. The cost difference was astounding, almost 40% lower on the internal list. Emily's heart accelerated. This wasn't just a matter of economy, it was potentially dangerous. Housing structures built with inferior materials might not withstand the heavy rains that regularly hit California, especially in hillside areas like parts of East Oakland. Have you ever faced information that could completely change your view of someone you admire? How would you react upon discovering that a social project that seemed so sincere was hiding a scheme to profit at the expense of vulnerable people's safety? Emily looked around. No one seemed to notice her discomfort. Discreetly, she photographed the two lists with her cell phone before continuing to organize the documents. That same afternoon, Ryan invited her for coffee after work. Seated in a cafe near Union Square with a view of the historic area, the conversation flowed naturally, as it always did between them. "You're different today," observed Ryan, stirring his coffee distractedly. "Did something happen?" Emily hesitated. She trusted Ryan, who had always demonstrated the same social concerns as her, but he was Michael Westbrook's son. Where would his loyalty lie? "I'm just tired," she lied. "End of semester at college, the internship." Ryan smiled understandingly. "I know how it is. My father sometimes forgets that interns have academic lives too." "Ryan," Emily began, carefully choosing her words, "is the Oakland Green Project really as we presented to the secretary? I mean, the materials, the structure. Will everything be implemented according to the original project?" His smile faltered for an instant. "Why the question?" "Professional curiosity," she replied, trying to sound casual. "I've heard stories of projects that are approved one way and executed another." Ryan placed his cup on the table and stared at Emily intensely. "My father built Westbrook on trust and quality, Emily. Yes, like any company, we seek to optimize costs, but we never, ever compromise on safety." The conviction in his voice almost made Emily believe she was wrong about what she had seen. "You're different from the other interns," continued Ryan, changing the subject. "Most are there just to add the company name to their resume. You really care about the impact of what we do." "I learned from my mom," replied Emily. "She always says that our work should serve a purpose greater than ourselves." Ryan reached across the table, lightly touching Emily's fingers. "That's exactly what I think. That's why—" He hesitated, suddenly, seeming nervous. "That's why I wanted to invite you to dinner on Saturday, not as co-workers, as something more." Emily's heart raced, divided between the joy of the invitation and the anguish of her recent discovery. Still, she heard herself saying, "I'd love to." On Saturday, Ryan took her to the Cliff House, a charming restaurant in San Francisco with a privileged view of the Pacific Ocean. Between dishes of contemporary American cuisine and a wine that cost more than Emily's rent, the conversation flowed to personal matters. "My father always expected me to follow his exact footsteps," confided Ryan. "When I decided to study sustainable architecture in Germany, he almost disowned me, thought it was hippie stuff." Emily laughed. "And what made him change his mind?" "I showed him that sustainability can be profitable too. The market is changing. Consumers are more aware." Ryan paused. "But more importantly, I showed that we could make a difference in people's lives without sacrificing the company." His sincerity touched Emily. Maybe Ryan really didn't know about the material swap. "And you?" he asked. "How did you end up in architecture?" "I grew up seeing my community being transformed by projects that never consulted the residents," explained Emily. "Buildings with no cultural identity whatsoever, public spaces that no one used. I decided I wanted to create places where people really felt they belonged." As she spoke, Emily noticed that Ryan was observing her intensely, as if he was really absorbing every word. "What?" she asked, blushing. "Nothing," he smiled. "I'm just thinking that you're exactly what Westbrook needed, what I needed." At the end of the night, under the starry sky of San Francisco, Ryan kissed her. It was a sweet kiss, hesitant, full of silent promises. Emily felt herself float. momentarily forgetting all her concerns. But Monday arrived, bringing reality back. A big meeting was called to discuss the schedule of the Oakland Green project. All directors would be present, including Vincent Miller, the financial director, and Michael Westbrook's right-hand man for more than 2 decades. During the meeting, Emily carefully observed the interactions. When the subject of materials was mentioned, she noticed a significant look between Vincent and Michael. "Are the costs within budget?" asked Michael, with a casual tone that didn't fool Emily. "Perfectly controlled," replied Vincent with a little smirk. "We made some adjustments to the specifications, as discussed." Ryan frowned. "What adjustments? I don't remember approving changes to the technical specifications." Vincent adjusted his tie, visibly uncomfortable. "Just substitutions for more economical equivalents, Ryan. Nothing that compromises the project." "I want to see these substitutions," insisted Ryan. "Every change to the original project needs to go through the architecture team." "Don't worry about that now," intervened Michael with a tone that ended the subject. "Vincent knows what he's doing. Let's continue with the agenda." After the meeting, Emily saw Ryan heatedly discussing with his father in the hallway. She couldn't hear the content, but Ryan's expression of frustration said it all. When he returned to the department, he was visibly shaken. "Is everything okay?" asked Emily, concerned. Ryan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he always made when nervous. "My father sometimes makes decisions without consulting the technical team. It's frustrating." "About the materials?" He stared at her, surprised by her insight. "Yes. Apparently there have been changes that weren't communicated to our team." "And is that common?" "More than it should be," admitted Ryan. "But don't worry, I won't let them compromise the quality of the project." Emily wanted to believe him. She desperately wanted to believe that Ryan had the power to ensure the integrity of the project. But the shadow of doubt had already been cast. In the following days, Emily began to pay more attention to the company's movements. She noticed that Vincent and Michael frequently met behind closed doors. On one of these occasions, when everyone had already left, Emily returned to the office to retrieve a book she had forgotten. The silence of the 18th floor was broken only by the distant sound of voices coming from Michael's room. As she passed through the corridor, Emily couldn't help but overhear fragments of the conversation. "We saved almost $8 million with the substitutions," Vincent was saying. "The secretary has already approved the original budget, so the difference goes directly to the slush fund." "And the inspection?" Michael's voice sounded concerned. "Already taken care of. Andrews will ensure the inspection is merely procedural." Emily froze. She was hearing an explicit corruption scheme involving the Secretary of Housing, the same man she had impressed weeks ago with her passionate presentation. "And Ryan?" asked Michael. "He's asking a lot of questions." Vincent laughed. "Ryan is as idealistic as you were at 30. He'll eventually understand that business is business." "I hope so. I don't want family conflicts because of this." Emily moved away silently, her heart pounding in her chest. She grabbed her book and left the building like a robot, processing what she had heard. The next morning she decided to investigate further. Using the pretext that she needed to review some specifications, she asked for access to the server where the project documents were stored. Regina, trusting the intern who had won everyone's sympathy, granted it without questioning. What Emily found confirmed her worst fears. There was a systematic scheme of material substitution in various projects, not just Oakland Green. The savings were internally justified as resource optimization, but represented serious risks to the safety of future residents. While copying some files to a flash drive, Emily heard footsteps. She quickly closed the computer windows and pretended to be working on a technical drawing. It was Ryan. "Hey, I thought I'd be the only workaholic here today," he joked, leaning in to kiss her. Emily accepted the kiss, feeling a twinge of guilt. Was she betraying Ryan by investigating his family's company? Just finishing some details, she replied, discreetly closing the drawer where she had stored the flash drive. Have dinner with me tonight? I want to show you something special. The something special turned out to be a small modernist house in Berkeley, hidden among older buildings. It was my first solo project, explained Ryan as he opened the door. I designed it for myself, a place where I could think freely, away from the family mansion in Pacific Heights. Emily admired the carefully planned spaces, the perfect integration with the outdoor garden, the sustainable solutions incorporated into every detail. It's beautiful, Ryan. It really expresses who you are. He smiled, pulling her into his arms. I wanted you to know this place because it's where I'm truly myself, without the weight of the Westbrook name. That night, under the roof that Ryan had designed with so much love, Emily gave herself to him. It was a deep, intense, almost desperate connection, as if both sensed that this moment of perfect harmony was threatened by secrets too big to be ignored. The next morning, while watching Ryan prepare coffee in the small kitchen, Emily made a decision. She needed to confront him with what she knew. Ryan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. He turned, his expression suddenly serious. Of course. What is it? Did you know about the material swap in the Oakland Green project? About the agreement with Secretary Andrews? The cup Ryan was holding trembled slightly. What are you talking about? I found documents, Ryan. I overheard conversations. I know the construction company is replacing safety materials with cheaper, dangerous options. I know the money from the difference is going to a slush fund, and I know the secretary is involved. Ryan turned pale, placing the cup on the counter. Emily, that's a very serious accusation. I'm not accusing you, she clarified, carefully observing his reaction. I'm asking if you knew. A long silence settled between them. Finally, Ryan passed his hand over his face in a gesture of deep weariness. I suspected, he admitted. In recent months, I noticed discrepancies, questioned my father, but he always changed the subject. Vincent has more and more power in decisions. He looked directly into Emily's eyes. But I didn't have concrete evidence until now. And what do you intend to do about it? Ryan walked to the window, observing the garden for a few moments before answering. What would you do in my place, Emily? Would you denounce your own father? Destroy your family's legacy? If that legacy is built putting lives at risk, yes, I would denounce it, replied Emily without hesitation. Ryan turned to her, his eyes sad. It's easy to say when it's not your family. Those words hit Emily like a slap. You think it's easy for me to be here, confronting the man I love about his family's crimes. Is that how you see me? That's not what I meant. Ryan tried to approach, but Emily stepped back. It's exactly what you meant. To you, I'm just a girl from the suburbs with naive ideals who doesn't understand how the real world works, right? Emily, please answer one thing, Ryan. If they discover this scheme, who do you think will suffer the consequences? The residents of East Oakland who will live in unsafe houses, or your family who will remain rich even after a possible fine? His silence was answer enough. Emily picked up her bag and walked to the door. I thought we were equals, Ryan, that we shared the same values. But it seems the Westbrook name weighs more than I imagined. Before she could leave, Ryan grabbed her arm. What are you going to do, Emily? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications. Was it a request for reassurance or a veiled threat? I don't know yet, she answered honestly. But I can't simply ignore what I discovered. He released her slowly. Please, give me a few days. I'll talk to my father, seek an internal solution. I promise we'll find a way to fix this. Emily nodded, not entirely convinced, but willing to give Ryan a chance. 3 days, Ryan. After that, I'll have to follow my conscience. She left the apartment with a heavy heart, questioning whether she had made a mistake in trusting Ryan. But part of her still believed he would do the right thing. She had to believe. The next day, Emily noticed unusual movement in the office. Urgent meetings, whispered conversations, tense looks. Ryan was absent. He sent a message saying he was with his father in an external meeting. It was then that Vincent Miller appeared in the architecture department, something he rarely did. His calculating eyes scanned the room until they fixed on Emily. "Emily Taylor, could you come with me to my office, please?" Vincent Miller's office was smaller than Michael Westbrook's, but equally imposing. Framed certificates covered an entire wall, displaying his education at important business schools. On the opposite wall, photos of the financial director with influential politicians and businessmen. "Please sit down," he said, indicating a leather chair in front of his desk. His tone was polite but cold. "I heard you've been standing out in the Oakland Green project." "I try to contribute as best I can, sir," replied Emily, maintaining her composure despite her nervousness. Vincent smiled without showing any warmth. Modesty is a rare quality these days. He opened a folder on his desk. "I saw your academic record. Impressive for someone with your background." The slight disdain in the last word didn't go unnoticed. "I imagine the internship at Westbrook is a unique opportunity for you," he continued. "Internships like this open doors that would normally remain closed. Have you ever been in a situation where you realized you were being subtly threatened? How would you react to someone powerful insinuating they could ruin your future?" Emily maintained a firm gaze. "It is a great opportunity, yes. I'm learning a lot about how a real construction company works." "And what exactly have you been learning?" The question sounded casual, but Vincent's eyes were as sharp as razors. "About processes, planning, the importance of details," Emily paused, "and about how corporate decisions impact people's lives." Vincent leaned forward. "Fascinating perspective. You know, Emily, in the corporate world, discretion is a valuable virtue. Internal information, decision-making processes, these are delicate matters that, if misinterpreted by inexperienced people, can cause unnecessary confusion." Emily's heart raced. It was clear that Vincent knew or suspected something. "I've always been discreet, Mr. Miller." "Great." He leaned back in his chair. "Because it would be a shame if your promising career was harmed by misunderstandings." "Any specific misunderstanding that concerns you?" Vincent laughed, a sound without humor. "I like your frankness, Emily. So I'll be equally frank. We know you accessed restricted documents of the Oakland Green project, financial documents that are not part of your scope of work." Emily felt a chill down her spine. They were monitoring her access to the server. "I was authorized by Regina to review project documents for a presentation," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Regina exceeded her authority," cut Vincent. "But I'm willing to consider this a simple misunderstanding, with one condition." He opened a drawer and removed a thick envelope, placing it on the desk. "There's $50,000 here. Consider it an advance bonus for your good work." Emily looked at the envelope, incredulous. "This is a demonstration of our appreciation for talented employees," completed Vincent with an icy smile, "along with our expectation of total loyalty." "Loyalty? Simplicity, Emily. What you saw or thought you saw in the project documents doesn't leave this building. Your brilliant career continues. We all stay happy." He pushed the envelope toward her. "Maybe we can even discuss a permanent position after your internship. Michael would be delighted to have you permanently on the team." Emily stared at the envelope, perfectly understanding the choice being offered. Her silence in exchange for money and opportunities. The temptation was real, that money would solve many problems for her and her mother. "Can I think about it?" she asked, trying to buy time. Vincent checked his watch. "Of course. You have until tomorrow at 10 a.m. After that, I'll have to reconsider your permanence in the internship program." He smiled again. "Corporate decisions, you understand. Nothing personal." Emily left the office with the heavy envelope in her bag and an even heavier weight on her conscience. In the elevator, she checked her cell phone. There were 3 missed calls from Ryan. She didn't return them. Instead, she headed to the Golden Gate Bridge, the same place where we are at the beginning of this story. She needed to think, away from the suffocating environment of the construction company. Seated at the observation deck, with the city at her feet, Emily opened the envelope and counted the bills. Exactly $50,000, as Vincent had said. Enough money to pay for her mother's medical treatment, who had been on the public healthcare waiting list for months. Enough money to make a down payment on a small apartment, freeing them from the rent that consumed almost half of Miss Carroll's salary. Her phone rang. It was Ryan again. "Emily, where are you? I'm worried." "At the Golden Gate Bridge," she replied, her voice distant. "I heard that Vincent asked to talk to you. What happened?" Emily took a deep breath. "He offered me money, Ryan. $50,000 for my silence." A long silence on the other end of the line. "And what did you answer?" "That I needed to think. I have until tomorrow to decide." "Emily." Ryan's voice was tense. "I talked to my father. He admitted the material substitutions but assured that they don't compromise safety. Says they're common adaptations in the market." "And you believed him?" Another silence. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "I hired an independent engineer to analyze it. I'll have the report tomorrow." Emily felt a pang of hope. Ryan was really trying to do the right thing. "Don't make any decisions until we talk, please," he asked. "Come to my apartment tonight. We need to discuss this in person." Emily agreed and hung up. She put the envelope back in her bag and descended from the observation deck. As she walked towards the exit, her phone rang again. It was Jason. "Hey, Emily, disappeared, huh? I miss my friend." Jason's carefree voice brought a small smile to her lips. "I miss you too, Jason. Sorry for the disappearance. It's just that the internship is consuming me." "I imagine. The all-powerful Westbrook construction must be an intense environment." He paused. "Is everything okay? Your voice sounds strange." Emily hesitated. Jason had always been her safe harbor, the friend who knew her better than anyone. "Actually, no. I'm in the middle of a complicated situation. Need help. You know you can count on me, right?" "Yes, I know." Emily bit her lip. "Jason, what would you do if you discovered something wrong, something potentially dangerous in the company where you work?" "Wrong like substituting safety materials for cheaper options in a housing project with bribes for inspectors to turn a blind eye." Jason whistled softly. "Wow, Emily. That's serious. Are we talking about Westbrook?" "Hypothetically," she replied, looking around to make sure no one was listening to her. "Well, hypothetically, I would report it," said Jason without hesitation. "But I understand it's not always that simple. There are consequences, retaliation. Do you have evidence?" "Hypothetically, yes." "And what's stopping you from reporting it?" Emily thought of Ryan, the money, the career opportunity, her mother's treatment. "It's complicated." "Emily," Jason's voice became serious, "I've known you since we were kids. I know you've always been guided by the values your mum taught you. I've never seen you waver in the face of what's right, even when it was difficult." Her friend's words hit deep. "Thank you, Jason. I need to resolve some things, but I'll call you later, okay? I'll be waiting. And Emily, whatever your decision, I'm on your side." At night, Emily headed to Ryan's apartment in Berkeley. She found him visibly worn out, with deep shadows under his eyes. As soon as he opened the door, he hugged her tightly, as if afraid of losing her. "I spent the whole day trying to resolve this," said Ryan, leading her to the living room. "I confronted my father again, showed him the risks not only for the construction company, but for the people who will live in those houses." "And what did he say?" Ryan ran his hand through his hair. That's how things work, that all competitors do the same, and that if he strictly followed all specifications, we couldn't compete in the market. He sighed. "I tried to explain. That we could be better, lead by example, but he wouldn't listen, completed Emily. Worse, he said Vincent was right, that I'm too idealistic for business. Ryan stared at her. Emily, I promised myself I wouldn't be like my father, that I would build a career based on integrity. But now you're torn between reporting your own father or being complicit, said Emily softly. Ryan nodded, his eyes watery. What do we do now, Emily? The question hung between them, loaded with implications. It wasn't just about the future of Westbrook Construction or the Oakland Green Project. It was about what kind of people they would choose to be. First, replied Emily, we need to see the independent engineer's report. Be absolutely certain of the risks. I agree. I'll receive the report tomorrow morning. Emily took a deep breath. After that, we have to decide, together, if the risks are real. We can't allow hundreds of families to live in unsafe houses, Ryan. He took her, hands in his. I know it's the right thing to do, but I'm afraid of the consequences, Emily. Not for me, but for you. Vincent is vindictive. He has powerful connections. I have evidence, replied Emily. I copied documents that clearly show the difference between what was approved and what will be executed. And I have recordings of my conversation with Vincent today, offering money for my silence. Ryan's eyes widened. You recorded it? Emily nodded, taking her phone out of her pocket. I learned to protect myself early in life. I recorded everything with the voice notes app. A small smile appeared on Ryan's tired face. You're amazing, you know that? Just cautious, she replied, allowing herself to smile too. That night, neither of them slept much. The following morning would bring decisions that would change their lives forever. The independent engineer's report arrived promptly at 9 a.m. Ryan and Emily, gathered at his apartment, read every word with increasing attention and horror. It's not just bad, muttered Ryan, moving to the third page. It's criminally negligent. The engineer had been clear. The proposed material substitutions would reduce structural resistance by up to 40% in some critical points. In an area subject to earthquakes like East Oakland, this meant a real risk of collapse during the strong tremors that could hit the San Francisco Bay Area. The conclusion is unequivocal, Emily read aloud. The execution of the project with the substitutions listed in the internal document represents an imminent risk to the lives of future residents, especially considering the seismic activity of the region. Ryan closed his eyes, as if feeling physical pain. My father, how could he approve this? The answer was obvious, but too painful to verbalize. Profit, the same motive that drove so many corporate decisions around the world. What do we do now? Asked Emily, checking the clock. It was 9:30. In half an hour, Vincent would expect her answer. Ryan took a deep breath, finally seeming to reach a decision. Let's go to the district attorney's office, today, with all the evidence. Emily took his hand. Are you sure? It's your father, your family. My father made his decisions, replied Ryan, his voice firm. He always taught me that actions have consequences. It's time for him to face his. The relief Emily felt was immense. Ryan had chosen the difficult but correct path. I agree, but there's a problem, she said. Vincent expects my answer at 10 a.m. If I don't show up, he'll suspect. We need to buy time to properly organize the evidence before going to the DA. Ryan thought for a moment. Go to the meeting. Say you accept the money, but that you need a few days to cool the situation. That will give us the necessary time. Emily hesitated. I don't know if I can be convincing. You can. Ryan held her face between his hands. You're the strongest person I know, Emily. You always knew what was right. Even when I wavered. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared, Ryan, not just about what they can do to me, but to my mum, to my future. I'll be with you every step, he promised. Together, we'll do the right thing. At exactly 10 a.m., Emily knocked on Vincent Miller's office door. She felt the heavy envelope in her bag. She hadn't opened it since the conversation at the Golden Gate Bridge. "Come in," called Vincent's voice. To Emily's surprise, Michael Westbrook was also there, seated in a leather armchair in the corner of the office, a cup of coffee in his hands. His calculating gaze analyzed her from head to toe. "Good morning, Emily," said Vincent with a cold smile. "I imagine you've reflected on our conversation yesterday." Emily swallowed hard, feeling her heart race. Michael's unexpected presence complicated everything. "Yes, sir. I reflected a lot." "And so," pressed Vincent, "what's your decision?" Emily felt the weight of both men's gaze. She had mentally rehearsed what she would say, but Michael's presence destabilized her. Still, she remembered Ryan's words. "You're the strongest person I know." "I decided to accept your offer," she said, keeping her voice firm. "The money will be very useful for me and my family." A satisfied smile appeared on Vincent's face. "Excellent choice, Emily. I knew you were an intelligent young woman." Michael, however, continued to observe her intensely. "And what else do you want, Emily?" he suddenly asked. "Because people like you always want more." The question caught her by surprise. "What do you mean, sir?" "Vincent offered money and the vague promise of a future in the company," said Michael, placing the cup on the table and standing up. "But I suspect you want more concrete guarantees." Emily realized that Michael was much more perceptive than Vincent. He was testing her, trying to discover her true intentions. "You're right," she replied, deciding to change her strategy. "I want guarantees that I'll have a permanent place at Westbrook after my internship, and I want to continue working on the Oakland Green project." Michael smiled slightly, as if appreciating her audacity. "Why? From what I understand, you disagree with how we're conducting the project." Emily felt her stomach sink. They were playing with her. "I disagree with some decisions, yes," she admitted, realizing that denying would be useless. "But I understand that business is business, and I prefer to be inside, positively influencing what's possible than outside." Michael and Vincent exchanged looks. "A pragmatic perspective," commented Michael. "I like that." He walked to the window, observing the view of downtown San Francisco. "You know, Emily, when I started Westbrook, almost 40 years ago, I was idealistic like you. I wanted to transform the city, create dignified spaces for everyone." He turned to face her. "But I soon learned that the system doesn't reward idealism. It rewards results, profits, growth. And to survive in this market, sometimes we need to adapt our principles." "I understand, sir," replied Emily, trying not to show the discomfort she felt. "I doubt it," said Michael with a touch of bitterness. "But maybe one day you will." He paused. "Vincent told me that you and my son are close." Emily's heart raced. "We are colleagues," she replied evasively. Michael laughed. "My son is not as discreet as he thinks. I see how he looks at you, how he talks about you." He approached, lowering his voice. "Ryan has a bright future ahead, Emily. It would be a shame if distractions diverted him from the path." The veiled threat was crystal clear. "I'm not a distraction, Mr. Westbrook," replied Emily, maintaining her composure. "We share the same passion for architecture and for social transformation through it." "Social transformation," repeated Michael with slight disdain. "Ryan will have time for those juvenile idealisms when he takes over the presidency of Westbrook. Until then, he needs to learn how the real world works." He sat back down, as if the conversation was over. "Vincent, provide a confidentiality agreement for Miss Taylor to sign along with the receipt of the bonus." "Immediately," replied Vincent, already taking documents from a folder. "As for your future in the company," continued Michael, addressing Emily, "it will depend exclusively on your loyalty and discretion from now on. Are we understood?" "Perfectly, sir," replied Emily. A few minutes later she was leaving the office with the envelope of money in one hand and a copy of the confidentiality agreement in the other. Her heart was beating so hard she feared they could hear it from the hallway. Upon reaching the architecture department, she found Ryan anxiously waiting. "How was it?" he asked in a low voice, while they pretended to discuss a blueprint. "Your father was there," whispered Emily. "I think they suspect something. We need to act quickly." They arranged to meet after work at Golden Gate Park, a public place where they could talk without raising suspicions. Emily spent the rest of the day working normally, trying not to show nervousness. Every time she crossed paths with Vincent or Michael in the hallways, she felt her stomach turn. At 6 p.m., when she finally left the building, she noticed a black car parked across the street. It could be a coincidence, but her instincts screamed that it wasn't. She decided not to go directly to Golden Gate Park. Instead, she took the BART to Oakland, then a bus to Berkeley, and finally walked to the park, making sure several times that she wasn't being followed. Ryan was already waiting for her near the Conservatory of Flowers, his nervousness evident in his pale face. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said, hugging her. "I think they're following me," explained Emily. "I had to take some detours." "That confirms our suspicions," replied Ryan somberly. "They don't trust you, despite accepting the money. What do we do now?" Ryan showed a folder he was carrying. "I spent the afternoon organizing all the evidence. We have copies of the original documents approved by the secretary, the modified versions for execution, the independent engineer's report, emails exchanged between my father and Vincent." "How did you get the emails?" asked Emily, surprised. "I have access to the server as a director. They never imagined I would use it against them." There was sadness in his voice, but also determination. "I scheduled a meeting with the prosecutor at the district attorney's office for tomorrow at 10 a.m. A friend from college who works in the area of environmental and urban crimes." Emily nodded, admiring Ryan's courage. Reporting his own father was not an easy decision. "I'll go with you," she said. "It's dangerous, Emily, if they find out. I'm already involved up to my neck, Ryan. Besides, I have the recording of Vincent's offer and the confidentiality agreement I signed today. They're important evidence." Ryan took her hands. "Are you sure? You can still back out, pretend you don't know anything. I can do this alone." Emily smiled, touching his face affectionately. "I would never let you face this alone. We're together, remember?" That night, Ryan insisted that Emily stay at his apartment, concerned for her safety. While she was taking a shower, he prepared a simple dinner, the most his culinary skills allowed. It was a strangely intimate night, despite the tension hanging over them. They talked about the future, about how their lives would change after the complaint, about their dreams that now seemed more distant. "I always dreamed of creating a social architecture division within Westbrook," confided Ryan, as they lay in bed, embracing. "Sustainable projects for underprivileged communities with affordable prices but without compromising quality." "You can still realize that dream," replied Emily. "Maybe not at Westbrook, but on your own path." "And you? What's your dream?" he asked, caressing her hair. "I want to create spaces that really transform people's lives, not just beautiful buildings, but places that promote encounters, that strengthen communities." She paused. "And I want to do that by your side." Ryan kissed her softly. "We'll build this together, after all this is over." The next morning, as they prepared to go to the district attorney's office, Ryan's phone rang. It was his father. "Ryan, we need to talk. It's urgent." Michael's voice sounded strangely vulnerable, different from the confident man Emily had met the day before. "I'm busy right now, Dad. Can we talk later?" "It's about the Oakland Green project. And about Emily." Ryan and Emily exchanged alarmed looks. "What about Emily?" asked Ryan cautiously. "I prefer to talk in person. Can you come to my house in Pacific Heights, just you?" Ryan covered the phone's microphone. "What do you think?" he whispered to Emily. "It could be a trap, or it could be a chance to resolve this without Scandal, she replied. Maybe he realized we're prepared to file a complaint and wants to negotiate. Ryan hesitated. I don't want to leave you alone. Go. I'll wait here. If you don't give me news in 2 hours, I'll go directly to the prosecutor with the evidence. Reluctantly, Ryan agreed. I'll be there in an hour, Dad, he said on the phone before hanging up. After Ryan left, Emily felt increasing discomfort. What if it really was a trap? What if something happened to him? She decided to call Jason. She needed someone to know where she was and what she was doing in case something went wrong. Hey, Emily, answered Jason cheerfully. Jason, I need you to do me a favor. It's important. Sure, what is it? I'm in Ryan Westbrook's apartment in Berkeley. If you don't hear from me by noon, call this number. She dictated the contact of the prosecutor Ryan had mentioned. Say you have information about irregularities in the Westbrook Construction's Oakland Green project. Emily, you're scaring me. What's going on? I can't explain right now, but I promise I'll tell you everything later. I just need you to do this for me, okay? Okay, replied Jason, the concern evident in his voice. But be careful, please. I always am. The next 2 hours were the longest in Emily's life. Each minute that passed increased her anxiety. Ryan wasn't answering his cell phone, and her messages remained with a single checkmark, indicating they hadn't been delivered. At 11:45, when she was about to leave to meet the prosecutor alone, she heard the apartment door open. Ryan entered, his face pale, his eyes red, as if he had been crying. Ryan! What happened? Emily ran to him. He hugged her tightly in silence for long seconds. My father confessed everything, he finally said, his voice choked. Not just the scheme in Oakland Green, but years of bribes, overcharging, improper substitutions. It's worse than we imagined, Emily. He pulled away a bit to look her in the eyes. But he wants to make amends. He's going to cancel the current project, fire Vincent, and start over following all the original specifications without cuts. And he wants me to supervise everything, ensuring it's done correctly. Emily frowned, suspicious. Just like that, why? Because of me, replied Ryan. He said he realized he was losing me, that he saw in my eyes yesterday that I was ready to report him. He paused. And because of you, too. Because of me. He sees you as a conscience I needed to confront him. Said you remind him of himself when he was young, before being corrupted by the system. Emily sat down, trying to process all that. Was it sincere or just a maneuver to buy time? Do you believe him? She finally asked. Ryan sat beside her. I want to believe. He's my father, Emily. If there's a chance to resolve this without destroying the company, without a scandal that would affect hundreds of innocent employees, shouldn't we at least try? There was a silent plea in his eyes, a desperate desire to believe that his father could still be saved, that the company bearing his name could be redeemed. What would you do in Emily's place? Would you trust the words of a man who has already proven capable of putting profit above the safety of innocent people? Or would you give a second chance, betting on redemption? I don't know, Ryan, replied Emily honestly. Your father has already demonstrated that he's willing to put lives at risk for money. How can we trust that he'll really change? He gave me this. Ryan took a document from the inside pocket of his blazer. It's a term of commitment, notarized, committing to redo the entire project according to the original specifications, under the supervision of independent inspectors that we choose. Emily took the document, reading it carefully. It seemed genuine and legally binding. Besides, continued Ryan, he agreed to create a fund for social architecture projects, starting with $5 million, a fund that would be administered by both of us. It was tempting, Emily had to admit. The chance to transform something negative into a real opportunity to do good, to work on projects with positive social impact, with adequate resources. And what if it's just buying time? She questioned. What if, as soon as we lower our guard, he goes back to his old practices? It's a risk, admitted Ryan. But we have all the evidence safe. If he doesn't fulfill his promise, we can still report him. Emily stood up, walking to the window. Outside, life was following its normal course on the streets of Berkeley. People coming and going, unaware of the moral dilemma unfolding in that apartment. "What does your heart say, Emily?" asked Ryan, joining her at the window. "My heart," she smiled sadly. "My heart wants to believe in happy endings, Ryan. Wants to believe that people can change, that companies can be ethical, that we can transform the system from within." She paused. "But life has taught me to be cautious." Ryan held her hands. "I understand your distrust, but think about the good we can do with this fund. Think about the people we can help." Emily took a deep breath. It was a difficult decision, but it needed to be made. "Let's give your father a chance," she finally said, "but with conditions. I want to personally participate in supervising the construction. I want weekly progress reports. And I want Vincent to be not only fired, but reported for the very scheme he helped create." Ryan hesitated. "I don't know if my father would agree to report Vincent. They've worked together for decades." "That's my non-negotiable condition, Ryan. If your father really wants to make amends, he needs to be willing to expose everyone involved, not just take the blame alone." After a long moment of reflection, Ryan nodded. "I'll talk to him. I think he'll agree if it means that you and I will be by his side in rebuilding the company." They arranged a meeting for that same afternoon at the Westbrook Mansion in Pacific Heights. Emily had never been there before, and the opulence of the place, with a privileged view of the bay, valuable artwork, and a team of staff always available, further evidenced the social chasm that separated her from Ryan's family. Michael received them on the terrace, looking strangely diminished compared to the imposing executive Emily knew from the office. He wore casual clothes, and his eyes revealed weariness. "Thank you for coming," he said, indicating the chairs around a glass table. "Emily, I admire your integrity. Not many people would have the courage to confront such an ingrained system." "I'm not interested in compliments, Mr. Westbrook," replied Emily directly. "I'm here to ensure things are done correctly from now on." A small smile formed on Michael's lips. "Straight to the point. I like that." He turned to his son. "Ryan explained your conditions to me. I agree with the supervision of the construction and the weekly reports. As for Vincent, he needs to be held accountable," interrupted Emily, "not just discreetly removed with a generous bonus." Michael sighed. "Vincent knows many of my secrets, Emily. Putting him against the wall would be risky for me." "That's the price of redemption, Mr. Westbrook," she replied, not yielding. "We're not talking about small irregularities, but decisions that could cost lives." A tense silence settled between them. Ryan looked anxiously from one to the other, clearly uncomfortable in the role of mediator between his father and the woman he loved. "What if," finally proposed Michael, "I guarantee that Vincent is completely removed, but without a public criminal process? He would be forced to return all the diverted money, which would be directed to the fund for social projects." Emily considered the proposal. It wasn't ideal, but perhaps it was an acceptable compromise, considering everything at stake. "With one additional condition," she said. "I want a document signed by Vincent admitting everything he did. A document that will be kept safe as a guarantee that he will never again try similar practices at another company." Michael studied Emily for a long moment, as if seeing her in a new light. "You would make an excellent executive, you know. You have the instinct for difficult negotiations." "I prefer to be just a good architect, thank you," replied Emily, impassive. "Dad," intervened Ryan, "do you agree with the terms?" Michael nodded slowly. "I agree. Vincent will be removed today, the project will be completely revised, and the fund for social projects will be established next week." "And what about the money you offered me?" asked Emily, removing the envelope from her bag. "I still haven't opened it." Michael smiled. Consider it your first contribution to the social fund, unless you prefer to donate to another cause. Emily looked at the envelope in her hands, thinking of her mother, the treatment she needed, the financial difficulties they had always faced. I'll think about the destination of this money, she finally replied, but it won't be for my personal use. In the days that followed, Emily cautiously observed as the promises began to materialize. Vincent was discreetly removed, but with the compromising document signed as agreed. The Oakland Green project was completely revised, with Emily having an active voice in each decision, and the Fund for Social Projects was legally established, with her and Ryan as administrators. A week later, Emily found herself again at the Golden Gate Bridge observation deck, watching San Francisco Bay. Different from the last time, when she carried the weight of a terrible secret, now she felt a mixture of caution and hope. Ryan joined her, intertwining his fingers with hers. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how life takes turns," replied Emily. "2 weeks ago, I was about to report your family. Now, we're working together on a project that can transform lives." "You transformed my family, Emily," said Ryan. "My father is different, more reflective, more aware of the impact of his decisions. I hope it's a lasting change." "It will be," guaranteed Ryan, "because we'll be there to ensure it." 6 months passed since that day at the Golden Gate Bridge. Emily's life had changed in ways she never imagined. The Oakland Green project was advancing at full steam, strictly following the original specifications, and, in some aspects, even surpassing them, thanks to the improvement suggestions Emily had implemented. It was a Saturday morning when Emily and Ryan arrived in East Oakland for a routine visit to the construction site. The site was busy, with dozens of workers in activity. Among them, Emily recognized familiar faces of residents from the community who had been hired for the project. One of her conditions to ensure that the community benefited not only from the new housing, but also from employment opportunities. "Emily, Ryan," Mrs. Johnson, a community leader and one of the main partners of the project, came to meet them. "You arrived just in time. We're finalizing the structure of the community center." Emily smiled, hugging the grey-haired lady who had become a kind of mentor for her in the community. "How are the families with the temporary move?" "Adapting well to the temporary accommodations," replied Mrs. Johnson. "They know it's for a good reason, and that coexistence space you created makes all the difference." One of the innovations of the revised project had been the creation of dignified temporary housing for families during construction, with common spaces that preserved the sense of community so characteristic of East Oakland. Have you had the opportunity to transform something negative into positive? To take a situation that seemed irreparable and find a path to create something better? As they walked through the construction site, Ryan received updates from the responsible engineer while Emily talked with the residents, gathering feedback and suggestions. It was this direct connection with the community that made the project so special. People weren't treated as mere beneficiaries, but as active participants in the process. "Architect Emily," called Mr. George, an experienced construction worker who had been hired for the project. "That change you suggested in the ventilation of the units is working perfectly. The summer heat won't punish anyone here." Emily smiled, satisfied. One of her main concerns had been adapting the project to the real climatic conditions of the Bay Area, especially considering the often intense heat that hit the communities on hillsides, where air circulation was frequently hampered by the density of constructions. "Thank you, Mr. George. Your knowledge was fundamental to adjusting the project." At lunch, Emily and Ryan met with the technical team and community representatives at an improvised table under a tent at the construction site. It was a tradition they had established. Once a month, everyone ate together, sharing ideas and concerns in a relaxed environment. "Is Michael coming for the meeting on Monday?" asked Mrs. Johnson as they served the traditional barbecue. Confirmed, replied Ryan. He insists on personally following the progress each month. Michael Westbrook's transformation had surprised everyone, especially Emily. The man who previously prioritized only numbers and profits now showed genuine interest in the social impact of his projects. Of course, he was still a shrewd and pragmatic businessman, but something had fundamentally changed in his approach. I never imagined I would be sitting at the table with the owner of Westbrook, commented Mrs. Johnson with a smile, and that he would actually listen to what we have to say. The credit is all Emily's, said Ryan, looking at her with admiration. She showed us that another path was possible. Emily blushed slightly. It was a collective effort, and your father was ready to change, Ryan. He just needed a push. After lunch, while Ryan conducted a technical meeting, Emily walked alone through the community, visiting families she had known since childhood when she used to visit her aunt. It was important for her to maintain this connection, to always remember why and for whom she was working. Her cell phone rang. It was Jason. "Hey, architect of the year? Too famous to answer your friends?" he joked. Emily laughed. "Never, Jason. You know you're my best friend forever. I'm in North Beach with the gang from college. Want to come have a beer with us later? I don't know if I can today. I'm in East Oakland monitoring the construction and still have a meeting with Ryan and the sustainability team." Ryan, teased Jason. "You two don't separate anymore, huh? When's the wedding?" Emily laughed again, but the question touched a sensitive point. Her relationship with Ryan had naturally evolved over the past few months, strengthened by the challenges they faced together. They practically lived together in his apartment in Berkeley, and Emily already felt part of the Westbrook family, something she never imagined would be possible. "Don't be silly," she replied. "We're just dating." "For now," provoked Jason. "Look, it doesn't matter if today doesn't work, but next Saturday there's no excuse. It's my birthday, remember?" "Of course I remember. I wouldn't miss it for anything." After hanging up, Emily felt a twinge of guilt. She had distanced herself a bit from her friends in recent months, absorbed by work and her relationship with Ryan. She needed to find a better balance. Upon returning to the construction site, she found Ryan animatedly talking with a group of children from the community. He had brought materials for them to draw how they would like the leisure area of the housing complex to be. "Look, Emily," he called, showing the drawings. "We have future architects here." Emily's heart warmed seeing the scene. Ryan genuinely cared, genuinely believed in social transformation through architecture. It wasn't just talk. At the end of the afternoon, as they returned to Berkeley in Ryan's car, Emily became thoughtful. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing her silence. "Just thinking about how things have changed," she replied. 6 months ago, I was terrified about what I had discovered, fearing for my career, for people's safety. Now we're really making a difference." Ryan smiled, gently squeezing her hand. "You always knew what was right, Emily, even when I faltered. We all falter sometimes. The important thing is finding the way back." Upon arriving at the apartment, they were surprised by an unexpected visit. Michael Westbrook was waiting for them at the building entrance. "Dad, did something happen?" asked Ryan, concerned. "Nothing serious," reassured Michael. "I just needed to talk to both of you before Monday's meeting. May I come up?" The apartment. Michael seemed strangely nervous, something unusual for the always controlled businessman. "I received an interesting proposal today," he began, politely declining the drink Ryan offered. "The city of Sausalito wants to develop a sustainable housing project in the area, integrated with the environmental preservation of the bay." "Sounds perfect for our line of socio-environmental projects," commented Ryan, excited. "Yes, but there's a detail." Michael looked directly at Emily. "They want you as the principal architect, Emily. Apparently, they've heard about your work on Oakland Green." Emily widened her eyes, surprised. Me? But I haven't even officially graduated yet. Talent doesn't wait for a diploma, replied Michael with a small smile. I told them you're still in university, but they didn't seem to care. They want your vision, your approach. It's an incredible opportunity, Emily, said Ryan, visibly proud. Emily sat down, trying to process the information. It was a recognition she never expected so early in her career, if she could even call a career what had barely begun. There's one more thing, continued Michael, now clearly nervous. He took a small box from his pocket and handed it to Ryan. I thought this might be the right moment for this. Ryan opened the box, revealing a vintage diamond ring. Dad, this is your grandmother's engagement ring, confirmed Michael. She always said it should be given to someone who represented the true values of the family. I think Emily has proven to be that person, don't you think? Emily looked from one to the other, astonished. Ryan seemed equally surprised by his father's initiative. I'm not suggesting you get married tomorrow, clarified Michael with a smile. I just thought that, well, you're obviously building something special together, not just in the company, but personally too. Ryan looked at Emily, a silent question in his eyes. This wasn't how he had planned to make the proposal, but the moment seemed strangely perfect. Emily, he began, kneeling before her. I know it's early, that we still have a lot ahead of us, but these months have shown me that I want to build a life with you, a life of purpose, of transformation, of love. He opened the box. It doesn't have to be now. It can be when we're ready, but would you accept marrying me someday? Time seemed to freeze. Emily looked at the ring, at Ryan, at Michael, who was watching the scene with genuine emotion. She thought of the girl from Oakland who dreamed of transforming the world through architecture, the frightened intern who discovered a corrupt scheme, the woman who had the courage to confront a powerful system. And now, this same woman was being proposed to by the son of one of the most influential businessmen in San Francisco, with the patriarch's blessing, while leading a revolutionary project and receiving invitations for new professional challenges. Life really took unexpected turns. Yes, replied Emily, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. Yes, I want to build that life with you, Ryan. As he slid the ring onto her finger, Emily felt that she had closed one cycle and started another. The confrontation that seemed destined to destroy lives had paradoxically opened the way for a new reality, a reality that she had helped shape with her courage and integrity. In the months that followed, the Oakland Green Project was successfully completed, receiving national and international awards for sustainable architecture and social responsibility. The model was replicated in other communities in the Bay Area and other American cities. The Westbrook Fund for Social Projects, administered by Emily and Ryan, grew exponentially, attracting partners and investors committed to responsible urban transformation. Emily graduated with honors from UC Berkeley, with Ms. Carroll crying with pride in the audience. Her thesis on architecture of belonging redesigning community spaces was published and adopted at several universities. Vincent Miller, as agreed, never returned to the construction industry, retiring early and discreetly. And Michael Westbrook, surprising everyone, announced his retirement at 65, passing the command of the construction company to Ryan, with Emily as Director of Social Projects. His last act as president was to establish a rigorous and transparent code of ethics for the company, ensuring that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. Emily and Ryan's wedding took place on a sunny September day in the garden of the house in Berkeley, the house they had bought and renovated together, incorporating all the principles of sustainability and connection with nature that they defended in their professional projects. It was a simple and moving ceremony, uniting their so different families and the friends who had supported them throughout the journey. Ms. Carroll, radiant in the blue dress she had carefully chosen, hugged her son-in-law with genuine affection. "Take good care of her," she whispered. "My daughter has a huge heart, but she's also stubborn as a mule when she thinks she's right." Ryan laughed. "That's exactly why I fell in love with her, Ms. Carroll." Jason, chosen as best man, made a moving speech about how he always knew Emily would change the world in her own way. "She never accepted no for an answer when she knew she could do better," he told the guests. "Since she was little, when she built cardboard houses for the stray cats in the neighborhood, she already showed that her talent would be used for good." At the end of the party, when most of the guests had already left, Emily and Ryan sat on the porch, watching the lights of the city in the distance. "Happy?" he asked, intertwining his fingers with hers, the touch of the wedding ring still a novelty. "More than I imagined possible," replied Emily sincerely, "but also anxious for what lies ahead. The Sausalito project?" "Yes, and all the others after it. There's still so much to do, so many communities that need dignified housing projects, so many people who deserve spaces that truly meet their needs." Ryan smiled, recognizing the passion in her eyes, the same passion that had won him over from the beginning. "And we'll do this together, one project at a time." Emily rested her head on his shoulder, feeling a deep peace. The path hadn't been easy. It had required courage and determination, moments of doubt and difficult decisions. But each choice, each confrontation, each compromise had been worth it. On the horizon, the lights of the Golden Gate Bridge seemed to bless the city with its majestic span, reminding everyone that redemption was possible. For people, for companies, for entire communities. It only took making the right choice, even when it was the most difficult one. And Emily Taylor Westbrook had done exactly that.